Hello, my name is Ii, and I am here sitting down virtually with Andy Wallace, who made Particle Mace.
Hello.
So, Andy, tell me about, is it your studio or is it your brand? What is your entity that you make games out of?
Sure. So I usually go by Andy Makes when I'm making games. It's, I guess, something between a studio and a brand. It's mostly just me, but I work with other people a lot as well. Yeah, and so one of the games I made was Particle Mace, which is a top-down shooter without the shooting. So you fly a little spaceship around, it's got all this trash tethered to it, and you're trying to smash it into stuff. And it was one of the earliest Death by Audio arcade machines, back when they were still actually at Death by Audio. Mark helped me build it, and it was, so it's a big hit. It gets a lot of play wherever it's been. It's the Particle Mace machine is kind of toured all over New York and even a lot of the West Coast. So it's Silent Barn for a while, where the mailman would pop in and always play a few rounds. While I was at Death by Audio, several bands were late on stage because it was mostly drummers. I feel like drummers like the game more, but
Okay,
drummers were like playing Particle Mace. So yeah, we've had some good times with that
very
machine.
niche demographic there,
Yeah,
drummers.
drummers and postal workers. Those are the demo.
Awesome. It's often an underutilized market, really, drummers and postal workers. Tell me about generally your history in making games as Andy makes. How did you get
Yeah,
started?
totally. So I got started making Flash games when I was in high school. RIP Flash at the end of the month.
Mm,
Uh, And from there, I just kind of tinkered through college, still mostly with Flash. And then I went to Parsons for grad school, and I feel like I upped my game design a lot while I was there. After Parsons, I got a job at a small game company called Golden Ruby Games. I was the lead designer and programmer there. We made some mobile titles. As the company went on, we made some console titles like Wii U, PlayStation. We even made a game for Amazon Fire TV, if you have that.
whoa.
Um, I know. And while I was at that company, I also kept working on this project I'd started in grad school, which became Particle Mace. And so I actually got connected to Mark and Death by Audio Arcade even before Death by Audio Arcade existed, because at the first Deathmatch by Audio, my game didn't have an arcade machine yet, but they were just showing it on a projector. And I was like totally blown away by this like rad DIY space that like felt much cooler than I was. People were playing the game. And Mark actually came up to me and was like, "Hey, this game rules. Do you want an arcade cabinet?" And I was like, "Yes, yes, I want an arcade cabinet. Obviously." I think I came home and started like shouting to my wife and like, "This guy wants to build an arcade cabinet for Particle Mace." And so yeah, it kind of all went from there. Now I make a whole mishmash of small indie games, usually kind of more experimental, as well as physical games. So things like Circumnavigators. It's a game I worked on with Juno Moro, where you actually like physically like run around the thing. So I
Also a
like
dope game, yeah.
I like making games that actually have people interacting in public spaces.
Hmm.
Another game I worked on with my wife Jane Friedhoff, Salmon Roll, which has been shown at Death by Audio a lot as well, is like this game with this big 5-foot long controller where two people have to play together, and we literally just made the controller big enough that you can't do it by yourself. So like stuff
Awesome.
like that.
Alt control stuff.
Yeah.
But back to Particle Maze, how did you conceptualize the idea? Like, what were your inspirations? How did it get started?
So Particle Maze actually started life as a homework assignment in an algorithmic animation class taught by Zach Lieberman at Parsons. I think it was called Play This Damn Game at that point. And it was like a whole vector field assignment. So there's particles and this vector field, and you kind of slide around. But I had this shield around the ship that was all these little particles that were attracted to the ship, but repelled when they got really close. And over time, it became clear that the shield was like the most interesting part of this game by a mile. Like everything else is actually pretty boring.
Hmm.
But having all these particles that kind of like swung around you was really cool. And it was super engaging to fly around and play with those. So I eventually just kind of jettisoned everything else, turned those into the weapon, and that became the focus of the game.
Awesome. And so back to the cabinet being built. Mark approached you, but like why were you so psyched to specifically make a cabinet for this game? What made it, what lent it to that
I don't
format?
Yeah, totally. I do think the game's a good arcade game. You can play through it really quick. It's very quick to pick up. I was really conscious of that in the design, that it's simple and easy to play. But more importantly, just someone was like, I want to make an arcade cabinet for your game. Like, I wouldn't trust a game designer who is like, no, I don't want an arcade cabinet. Like, they rule. Come on, it's an
Sure,
arcade cabinet. Like, I
absolutely.
remember playing them as a kid. Like, that's such the cool thing. And once I had the cabinet too, it was like this amazing switch, just kind of flipped, where I'm so used to selling games as digital products,
Hmm.
and having a physical object that actually takes up space, like a thing that exists in the world and is heavy,
Hmm.
is just really cool. Like, it lends weight both literally and figuratively to the work I've done, and that's just very exciting.
Awesome. And when was it built?
Oh man. Let's see. Death by Audio was still open. I think it was built in 2014 or
Uh-huh.
2013. I'm gonna go with that. I'm not
Okay.
totally sure. It's certainly showing its age.
And what was the process like for like converting this digital only game to a cabinet? Did you have to make it? Were there any trade-offs? Did you have to make any adjustments?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so there's some trade-offs. Well, not really trade-offs, but there's things that we plan around. Some of the menus are certainly a little bit different.
Hmm.
There are like the arcade cabinet supports single player mode. It's just kind of the arcade score attack.
Hmm.
The actual release of the game, like on the computer, has like missions and things. But that's stuff that you want to like be coming back to over and over and over again on like where you're the only one playing it. Versus the arcade is, I just have the arcade mode and deathmatch mode and
Hmm.
co-op. But the modes are like you can just hop in with someone, play for 5 minutes, and bounce, and the next person can come in. It's that kind of stuff. I changed the high score screens. It's not like connected to the internet. You just put in
Okay,
your initials. But overall, it's the same game.
got it. And were you involved in the physical fabrication of the cabinet at all, or was it you
I
just
was.
gave the file over?
Yeah, so even really from the earliest conception for Death by Audio Arcade, even before it was called that, the push has always been for designers to be involved in the build process. So that's
Hmm.
still what we do now that we're like an actual org. But even back then, yeah, Mark had me over like cutting up wood and painting it. There's pictures of me and Nick Santinello like priming our cabinets because Power Boats was built at the same
Oh,
time.
sweet.
Yeah, no, I didn't have the skills necessarily at the time, but Mark definitely had me involved in the process.
And since then, you've been hooked on building cabinets, fabrication.
Yeah, I mean it's fun. You kind of make these magical objects.
What would your advice be for someone who's developing a game now who ultimately wants to see their game in a cab?
Make it really simple. The easier the game is to pick up, the more likely it is to succeed in a cab. No one's reading like 10 minutes of tutorial stuff in an arcade game. Just ain't happening. So
Got
you
it.
want to keep it nice and simple.
Cool. And I think that's it for what I need. The final thing is just tell me about your relationship with DBAA, Wonderville, and why you think we should save the arcade.
Totally. So, I mean, my relationship with DBA goes back pretty far.
Mhm.
I'm a founding board member. I've been involved pretty much since the get-go. And the reason I've stuck around is because it's just an amazing group, an amazing space. And now that we have Wonderville, like Wonderville is this home where we can actually really do all this stuff, where we can help other people make games, we can teach things, and there's just a place to come play these one-of-a-kind objects. I mean, over the years, we've built like 15 to 20 truly one of a kind art piece arcade cabinets that are now open to the public that people can just play. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, Wonderfill's incredibly important to me, as is Death by Audio Arcade. And I really just think as a designer, like why I've been so involved and why I've stuck with it is just this magical feeling of watching other people play an arcade machine. Like seeing other people engage with my work in that immediate way, like not mediated through the internet, not hearing, like watching a let's play or writing or posts about it, but just seeing people maybe who've never played this game before come together and like laugh and have fun at an actual arcade machine. It's just one of the most rewarding things in my career as a game designer. So please save the arcade. Save the
Yay!
arcade.